In this chapter, we meet our guarded pediatrician, Emma Rossi, as she arrives at a Mountain Lodge's Friendsgiving getaway, seeking escape from her carefully ordered life in New York City. So buckle up, dear listeners, because this turkey's about to get stuffed with more than just breadcrumbs. Chapter 1. A Life Less Ordinary. The harsh beep of an alarm cut through the pre-dawn silence of Emma Rossi's Manhattan apartment. Her hand fumbled in the dark, silencing the intrusion before it could wake the neighbors. 5:30 a.m. Just another day. Emma's bare feet hit the cool hardwood floor, sending a shiver up her spine. She padded to the kitchen, the soft whir of the coffee maker her only companion in the quiet morning. As she waited for her brew, her eyes drifted to the empty hook by the door, where a second coat should have hung. With a steaming mug in hand, Emma settled at her desk, flicking on her laptop. The glow of the screen illuminated a wall of framed medical certificates, achievements that once filled her with pride, now mere wallpaper in a life that felt increasingly hollow. Her inbox pinged with a new message. "Dr. Rossi, can you cover Dr. Thompson's shift this weekend?" Emma's finger hovered over the reply button. She glanced at her calendar. Nothing but blank squares stared back at her. With a sigh, she typed a quick,
"Sure, no problem,"
and hit send. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon when Emma stepped out of her building, the crisp November air nipping at her cheeks. The streets were already alive with the bustle of early commuters, each person a blur in New York's relentless pace. At the hospital, Emma's day unfolded in a familiar rhythm. She pushed through the swinging doors of the pediatric ward, the scent of disinfectant mingling with the distant sound of a child's laughter.
"Morning, Dr. Rossi,"
chirped Nurse Chen, handing her a tablet.
"We've got a full house today."
Emma's eyes scanned the screen, her mind already mapping out the day ahead.
"Thanks, Chen. I'll start with room 305.
In 305, she found 7-year-old Zach, his arm in a fresh cast, tear tracks still visible on his cheeks.
"Hey there, champ."
Emma said, her voice soft but upbeat.
"Heard you had quite the adventure on the monkey bars."
Zach's lower lip trembled.
"It hurts."
"I bet it does."
Emma nodded, pulling up a chair. She gently examined the cast, her touch careful and practiced.
"You know what? I think this cast makes you look pretty tough. Like a superhero."
A small smile tugged at Zach's lips.
"Really?"
"Absolutely. Now, let's talk about how we're going to make sure that superhero arm heals properly, okay?"
As she explained the care instructions to Zach and his relieved-looking mother, Emma felt the familiar warmth of purpose spreading through her chest. The next room brought a different challenge. 3-month-old Sophia, feverish and fussy in her worried father's arms.
"She won't stop crying,"
he said, dark circles under his eyes betraying a sleepless night. Emma took the baby, her hands moving with practiced ease.
"Let's have a look, shall we?" "Hello there, little one."
She cooed, her stethoscope already warming against Sophia's chest. 20 minutes and a thorough examination later, she handed a calmer Sophia back to her father.
"It's an ear infection. Uncomfortable, but very treatable. We'll get her started on antibiotics right away."
The relief on the young father's face was palpable.
"Thank you, Dr. Rossi. I was so worried."
Emma squeezed his shoulder reassuringly.
"That's what good parents do. You did the right thing bringing her in."
As the morning wore on, Emma moved from room to room, each presenting its own unique situation. A toddler with a mysterious rash that turned out to be an allergic reaction. Twins getting their vaccinations, one brave and one tearful. A teenager with a sports injury, trying hard to look tough but unable to hide a wince of pain. With each patient, Emma adjusted her approach. Her voice softened for the scared ones, grew playfully stern for the stubborn ones, and took on a conspiratorial tone for the shy ones. In the pediatric ward, she was indeed Dr. Rossi, confident, capable, and in control. But as she finished updating her last chart before lunch, a notification popped up on her phone. "Thompson family photos," it read. And for a moment, Emma's fingers hesitated over the screen. She swiped it away quickly, but not before a fleeting image of a smiling couple and their newborn flashed across her mind. Emma straightened her white coat, pushing the memory aside. There were more patients to see, more children who needed her. She grabbed her stethoscope and headed for the next room, diving back into the comforting rhythm of her work.
Great job today, Emma.
Her colleague Sarah said as they changed out of their scrubs.
Any plans for the weekend?
Emma paused, her locker door hiding her face.
Oh, catching up on some reading, maybe trying out a new recipe.
Sarah's enthusiasm was palpable.
Sounds nice. Jake and I are taking the kids to see the holiday lights at the park. You should join us.
Thanks, but I've got that extra shift, remember?
Emma's smile didn't quite reach her eyes.
Maybe next time.
The subway ride home was a kaleidoscope of sensations, each one amplifying Emma's feeling of disconnection. The screech of metal on metal as the train lurched forward made her wince, the sound grating against her already frayed nerves. Bodies pressed close in the crowded car, a sea of strangers swaying in unison with the motion of the train. Emma found herself wedged between a man in a sharp suit tapping furiously on his phone and a teenager with neon green hair bobbing her head to inaudible music. Neither seemed to notice her presence, as if she were a ghost passing through their world unseen. Muffled announcements crackled over the speakers, the garbled words blending into the ambient hum of the underground. Emma strained to make out the station names, a task that once required no effort. Now, each distorted syllable seemed to mock her inability to find her place, even in this familiar routine. Her eyes drifted to her reflection in the scratched window, the passing tunnel lights casting fleeting shadows across her face. For a moment she barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Where was the bright-eyed girl who had once boarded this very line, full of dreams and ambitions? The woman in the glass looked tired, her smile lines now etched with something heavier. Was it resignation? Loneliness? A jolt of the train caused her to sway, her hand automatically reaching for a pole that wasn't there. She stumbled slightly, her shoulder brushing against the suit-clad man. He glanced up, his eyes meeting hers for a fraction of a second before returning to his screen. In that brief moment of contact, Emma felt a pang of something. Longing? Regret? She remembered a time when her evenings were filled with anticipation, hurrying home to share stories of her day, to sink into the comfort of shared laughter and understanding. Now, the only thing waiting for her was an empty apartment and the echoes of what once was. The train slowed, and the automated voice announced her stop. Emma moved towards the doors, carried by the flow of passengers. As she stepped onto the platform, she felt as if she were emerging from a dream, or perhaps stepping into one. The familiar station suddenly seemed foreign, its bustling energy a stark contrast to the hollowness she felt inside. She joined the stream of commuters heading towards the exit, each step taking her closer to home, yet somehow further from where she longed to be. The autumn air hit her face as she emerged onto the street, a brisk reminder that the world kept turning. Seasons kept changing, even as she felt stuck in place. Emma took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. She was Dr. Emma Rossi. Capable, independent, successful. So why did she feel like a supporting character in her own life story? With a slight shake of her head, she started the short walk to her apartment, leaving the blur of the subway behind, but carrying its lingering sense of displacement with her. Back in her apartment, Emma stood in her kitchen, chopping vegetables with practiced precision. The sizzle of onions hitting the pan filled the air, a comforting sound in the otherwise silent space. She hummed softly, an old habit from when she used to cook for two. As she stirred the simmering pot, her eyes caught sight of the invitation pinned to her fridge. Friendsgiving getaway for singles. Embrace the holiday spirit in the breathtaking Colorado Rockies. Emma had dismissed it when Sarah first handed it to her, but now she reached out, fingers tracing the edges of the glossy paper. The mountains in the background seemed to call to her, promising something different, something new. Her phone buzzed. Another work email. Emma's hand dropped from the invitation, returning to the familiar routine of her solitary evening. But as she settled on the couch with her meal and opened her laptop to review patient files, her gaze kept drifting back to that colourful flyer on the fridge, a splash of possibility in her meticulously ordered world.